Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'll kick off the meeting of the Natural Resources Committee. And I'm going to ask Senator Harbin to open us in a word of prayer. Senator?
Okie doke. Thank you. Let's pray. Well, Lord, we thank you for the beautiful day that you've given us and for life itself that we take for granted many times. Ask that you would give us wisdom and direction as we consider, dear Lord, the issues of the natural resources and how to be good stewards of those. And ask, oh Father, that you would bless our work and give us wisdom in all that we do. And we'll thank you in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Senator. So today on the agenda, we're going to do a hearing on Senate Bill 94. Which is a bill by Senator Ginn dealing with dams, and we'll have a discussion about that. So I'm just going to turn the microphone over to you, Senator Ginn.
Thank you, Chairman Harper. And I know there's a lot of things that we can talk about today, but one of the things that I want everybody in here to realize, when I say DAM, I'm talking about DAM, not a damnation type thing. So when we talk about a damn bill, this is a good damn bill, and hopefully we can pass it. One of the things that for me, many of y'all know that the chairman and I are both ag engineers, and one of the things I think I don't know if you still have to do it in school, but we had to do a farm pond design. And you built, you did these designs and earthen dams and this kind of stuff. Well, in Georgia, we have, and I'm trying to make sure that all of our members, we got some new and some old, members on the committee, so I want to make sure we're up to speed. We passed this bill out last year out of the Senate and went over to the House, where Corona hit, the chairman over there lost her spouse, and we had a group of uninformed dam engineers come out and said with a little misinformation on it. So for me, one of the things that as a fast forward, you learn a little bit about dam design. In Georgia, a dam is technically something that's about 25 feet or above in height, from the bottom of the stream to the top of the dam, or withholds 100 acre feet of water. And basically this all came about because in the late 70s there was a disaster that happened in Toccoa. I believe it was 27 students and others lost their lives. In a dam failure in 1979, if I remember right. But what's happened is you're a product of what you see. And for me, when I became a county manager in Franklin County, we had 7 dams that we had some ownership and responsibility for some maintenance on. And I remember a farmer told me that on one of the Category 1 dams, which the difference between a Category 1 and a Category 2 is a Category 2 dam is something that's at least 25 feet high and holds 100 acre feet of water. If you take a mobile home and you park below it where it would get washed away, if the dam were to fail, it becomes a Category 1. Anything with an inhabitable structure in the breach zone of that dam becomes a Category 1 or a high hazard dam. An imminent loss of life would happen if the dam were to fail. So it doesn't mean that somebody's going to die, but there's a pretty good chance that somebody's going to die. There's an inhabitable structure below that dam that somebody would die. And you think, okay, well, who owns these dams? Well, what I come to find out when I was chair of natural resources back several years ago was the state, we have 357 dams that we own. When I looked at that, I asked our friends at EPD in Safe Dams. We have a department inside the Department of Natural Resources Environmental Protection Division that deals with licensing of dams. And the enforcement action to take, make sure that we're keeping the public safe, because nobody wants to see that loss of life. So for me, when I look at the problem that we face, when you have these dams out here, the first thing you have to do is realize I've got a dam that has substantial consequence to it, a certain size dam. And then once you've done that, you really need to find out what gets washed away, and it's not always as apparent as you would think. You think about when a dam breaks, well, how far does that dam breach cover in an inundation zone? Said and believe it or not, some of these dam breaches will extend for over a mile, well over a mile past a dam. Okay, as the county manager, we had 7 of those dams in the county, and one of them we knew was a Category 1, had already been studied and was a high hazard dam. Most of those dams that the state owns, they were built back in the Soil Conservation Service. They had a partner between the federal government, the state government, a local river district. Like I live in the Broad River District. You know, you might have the Chattahoochee River District, whatever. They're different districts that these dams are. Most of them are in the northern part of the state. They were put in for flood control. They were put in for recreation. They were put in for water quality improvements, for fisheries, different purposes that they serve. And they do a good job of that. Then you start looking at you know, when you built those dams back in the day, said, you know, those were built under supervision of the federal government, and they're well-built structures. Said a lot of the dams that I have since found out said they're privately owned dams. It'll be a farmer that has a dam, said it's using for irrigation. It may be a homeowners association. One of the things, I've had several homeowners association in different areas of the state that, you know, they have a stormwater detention pond that may meet that requirement. That's something along those lines. So what you find out is literally in Georgia, there are thousands of dams out there. I was talking to an engineer today with a company called Snobble. Said if you're familiar with Snobble Engineering, they do a lot of dam work. They work on these structures throughout the state and do a lot of those kind of things. So for me, what I found out was, okay, with the 2 classifications on the dams, said one of the worst things that I see as a problem is there'll be people that will move in downstream of a dam and not realize that they're in jeopardy if the dam were to fail, that they may be putting themselves at risk. So one of the first things they teach you in engineering school is identify the problem. Well, the way that you need to identify that problem is to do a breach analysis of the dam so that you know the area that what they call an inundation zone. If you do that, and I go back to this farmer, said he has a Category 1 dam on his property. Those 357 dams the state owns only have an easement to impound water and to build a dam on. The state doesn't own the property. It's owned by a private individual. Said and so because the state has ownership interest in usually through the soil district, whether it be the Broad River or whatever, said he said, you know, if y'all could fix that dam where it would always be a Category 2 dam, a low hazard dam, I would take care of the maintenance on it. But until y'all get it off the Category 1 list, I'm not touching it. And, you know, that stuck in my mind as a county manager. I said, you know, that makes sense. So for me, when I got into the Senate, said I had a situation where some folks over in Jackson County, some of my constituents reached out to me. They had a dam. There were some issues with it. Said they were trying to condemn their property because they wanted to harden the dam. Now, this was, if you remember, the economy had tanked 10 years ago. Said a lot of different things were going on, and the administration at that time put money into shovel-ready projects. So they wanted to go out and harden this dam. Now, they were going to build a labyrinth weir, a lot more design criteria than you'd want to know. But I realized then, I said, these are a problem. And so I kept working through, okay, what's the solution? Because for me, I'm a big fan of personal property rights. You could go out here and you could identify these dams and do testing on them, and you find out, okay, here's a dam that's a certain size and a certain height, and you could just pass a law that says, hey, guess what? You can never build a structure, an habitable structure, below that property. Well, guess what? You know, anybody got any lawyers in the room? Said what's going to happen when you do that is that's called unconstitutional taking of property. You can't just go in and tell somebody you can't do this on your property. They own the property down below it. That property's in private hands. So for me, now I got to figure out a way to solve the problem that's not an unconstitutional taking of the downstream property owners' rights and the dam owners' rights. So for me, what I wanted to do was worked on this problem for about 6 years. And I finally came up with legislation last year. And let me kind of give you the rundown of the legislation. The concept is built so that if you have one of these dams that's of a certain size, 25 feet in height or 100 acre feet, and somebody doesn't necessarily have to be the dam owner, but somebody does a breach analysis. And that's where through the Environmental Protection Division, you have to use an engineer of record. They have a listing of certain engineers that you can use. So they run a computer analysis using topo and flow and everything in there to find the breach area, so that they can map, and you can actually have more or less a meets and bounds description of that breach zone. When I look at, okay, I can't stop somebody from building a house in there, but I can do something to protect them. You know, if I go down to the coast and I build a house right on the ocean, I've got to build hurricane straps and other things to make my house harder for the higher winds and those kind of things to take care of. I know that Senator McNeil would be an expert on that probably. But for me, I don't live on the coast, but I'm looking at somebody that builds a house in that breach zone. I'll give you an example of a house that and a simple fix. I'm going to go build a house in that breach zone, and the water is going to be about the height of this countertop right here is 30 inches. If you had water at 30 inches moving at 5 feet per second, a house on a slab doesn't have a chance. It's probably going to wash into that house middle of the night. Somebody may get disoriented and lose their life. There is a good potential because it's just not water that's coming through a breach. It's going to pick up trees or, you know, automobiles or anything else that's moving. So if you have a situation, said you don't want to have a house or inhabitable structure in there, one thing that you could do is go in there and raise the foundation of that house up 3 feet, and you get it where the water parts around that house and you don't have the potential loss of life. So if I can get somebody that, first off, you have to recognize they're in a breach zone, and like I said, it could be as much as a mile away from one of these dams, that if they want to build a house, what we want them to be able to do is still be able to build that house, but build a hardened structure such that it won't get washed away and nobody loses their life if that dam were to breach. Okay, you look at it and say, now how am I going to prove that it's a hardened structure? For me, really the only way that we could do that is have a licensed professional engineer to certify to the Department of Natural Resources, Safe Dams area that, hey, this house will withstand if that dam were to breach. So for me, and I'm going to go through the legislation if we can. So then it's pretty easy to follow, but we've got definitions of what a dam is and what's going on with an engineer of record that they got to demonstrate certain amounts of experience in working with dams and the things there. So the meat of the bill happens when you first identify on line 75 what an inundation zone is, and that's basically the area that would be severely impacted when a dam breaches. Said when you look over at section 2, and here's what I'm trying to get to happen is I want somebody to do a breach analysis, and then and only then do you know whether it's a category 1 or a category 2. Somebody can go out and look at the dam and tell you it's a certain height and it meets the definition of a dam because of the size. But they can't tell you what's downstream until you've identified that breach analysis and know what gets washed away. If there's an inhabitable structure below that dam, in Georgia law right now, we allow for 3 things to happen to remedy that problem. You can harden the dam, you can bring the dam up to safe dam standards. You can go downstream where let's just say it's one house. You could go down there and remove that house out of the inundation zone, or you could harden that house. You could build a wall or a levee or something around the house to protect the house. So there's 3 things that you can do right now to take care of a category 1 dam. But the only way that you're going to know the difference between a category 1 and a category 2 is if you do this breach analysis and you look in that breach zone to see if there's an inhabitable structure in that area. If you find out that there's no inhabitable structure in the breach zone, then what this law will allow for somebody to do is, I've done the breach analysis. I'm going to notify the world, basically, that, hey, here's the breach analysis for this dam. You're going to send that and be recorded in the county records of whatever counties it's in. It may be crossing multiple counties. You're going to send it to the chief elected official in the whatever jurisdiction, whether that be the city or board of commissioners or whatever. The idea is that their planning department, if they have one, because you got to look across the state. We've got counties that don't have zoning. We have counties that don't do building inspection. We have counties that do a lot of that. So for me, you gotta make sure that it fits for all 159 counties. But what we want to do is we want to notify the public. We want to make sure that EPD, our partner in Safe Dams, has a registry of all of these breach analysis and where those breach zones are, so that somebody can go to an easy spot and say, hey, is this house going to be in a breach zone? Once that's done, what happens is if you want to build a house in that zone, I'm not the guy that's going to tell you you can't build a house there. I would encourage you not to, and I'll use an example of, okay, maybe they're 50 feet from a stream, and they're in the breach zone. If they back up another 20 feet or 50 feet or 100 feet, they get out of the breach zone. So if you're the homeowner that's wanting to build a house, you'd be much better off to stay out of the breach zone, because you don't have to have an engineer to hire to confirm that your house is safe. At the same token, we want to try to keep you out of that zone. But if you decide you want to build in there, you can. The only thing is, we want to make sure that you're not going to lose your life if the dam were to breach. So what we're trying to do is identify the zone first. If there's no houses in there, then we know that dam is a Category 2 dam. And the idea is to always keep it as a Category 2 dam. Now, I mentioned to you that one of these dams over in Jackson County, that with the ARA funds that were available at the time, the state was fixing to spend $2.3 million on one dam to harden it. That was irrespective of buying the property, because the property owner said, no, we don't want you to bother our dam. We like our dam like it is. Remember, they had an easement on their property for the size of the dam they had. So that easement, when you went up in height with the dam, was going to spread out the dam. So the state was going to have to condemn these people's property to go in and spend $2.3 million to harden it. I'm not real good at math. I know today we heard a bill where somebody said it might save $175,000. I want you to get the math here. We studied 186 out of the 357 dams with this funds that I had put into the budget. It's probably been 4, maybe 5 years ago now. And we came back and we said, okay, if we can keep somebody from moving into an inhabitable structure down below there, you do the math, 186 dams, a couple $1 million a piece. Pretty soon we're talking real money. We're close to the $500 million mark. So for me, just to the taxpayers of Georgia, this makes a lot of sense. But what I realized as this thing moved forward, we kept on with more and more, and I found more privately owned dams where people were calling me and said, hey, I would like to follow onto your dam legislation and what's going on. There's a lot of opportunities out there. There are farmers out there, there are homeowner subdivisions, a lot of different things that this will impact. The first thing I want to do is identify the inundation zone. The second thing is I want to keep you from building in it if I can. And if you do build in it, I want you to make sure that you don't lose your life. So with that, Senator Tippins asked me to tell you what the difference between the original bill as it was dropped in the substitute. So if you look over on section 2 on lines 95 through 100, my friends at EPD said and I hope somebody's here from EPD, said today. But for me, what we want to do with them is in a role there that they would receive the information so that any house that was built in that breach zone, they need to know it so that it doesn't change the category status. If long as an engineer has signed off on it and it is hardened to where it's not going to get washed away, then EPD has a record of that. If a house gets built in that zone, or there's already a house in that zone that would get washed away, it's a Category 1 dam. And so that's where, for me, we want to try to make sure that EPD has a role in this, because they need to keep up with a log of who's building in the zone and make sure that each one of them is a hardened structure. This bill went, like I said, and it was kind of interesting because last year I had a bill that was identical in process, said the little different language because we had different attorneys that wrote it. But the only no votes that I know of on the floor, and I had 3 or 4 no votes, was one of them was the governor's floor leader. And he said EP didn't get their comments into it before it went to rules. And I said, well, let me pass it out of the Senate, and then when it goes to the House, we'll change it. So I've got EPD's input onto the language of the bill today, and I'd like to bring it to a vote if the chairman would allow.
Are you done with your presentation?
I'll be glad to address questions on what
Okay.
somebody has on the bill.
Senator Brass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Ginn, I missed all that. Would you mind starting over?
Happy to.
That's all. I'm kidding. Please don't.
Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman, for bringing this damn bill to us. I like saying that, so thank you for giving me that opportunity. You mentioned in your opening remarks that there was some misinformation that was sent around by some safety engineers. Are you talking about the Association of Dam Safety Officials?
That's correct. Said I talked to a guy named Mark Ogden. You probably may have an email or a letter from him.
Yeah, he sent us a long thing here.
And one of the things that he's an engineer and he doesn't understand the legislative process.
Okay.
Said one of the things that and his biggest comment on the bill is he says that this legislation encourages somebody to build in the breach zone.
Yeah.
If y'all can read that into the legislation, said please show me where it's at, because what we're doing is we first identify the breach zone, because right now somebody unsuspectingly goes in there and builds a home. They don't even know they're in a breach zone. So first you have to identify the breach zone, and that's what doing the study does. Right. The other thing is I'm making it more costly for somebody to build in the breach zone than not to build in the breach zone. What he really wants to have happen is to pass that law that says, hey, we've created this breach zone and you can't build a house in it. Mm-hmm. And that's an unconstitutional taking. And for me, I'm not interested in passing legislation that gets tossed out of court the first day. So for me, I've had discussions with Mr. Ogden. Matter of fact, I had a discussion about a week ago with the president of ASCE, and he understands the problem. He says, yes, I'll work to get this corrected. So for me, I want you to understand the concept. This is not something that is a whim. I've dealt with this for about 2 decades now, and for me, I'll just tell you, there is no such thing as perfect legislation. Said this is by no means perfect, because what I really want to do is if we move forward with this, I would like to see the state at some point offer low interest loan money for somebody to do breach analysis, to do dam repairs, some way that we can incentivize to protect the folks that are unbeknown. The reason that I think this is so important for us to pass is when you build these reservoirs, and most of these things, they might be a 10-acre lake. That's a good example. You take a 10-acre lake. It improves downstream water quality. It improves fisheries, recreation, wildlife. There's a lot of things that happen. When most of these dams that were built in Georgia were built before we put in regulatory environment that you have to do wetland mitigation, stream buffer mitigation, encroachments. And so for me, every dam that, if you're a private dam owner and they come to you and said, well, you're going to have to spend $100,000 or $1 million or whatever the cost is to harden your dam, most of the private landowners are going to look at it and say, you know, I really want my lake and stuff, and so we're going to argue about it. We've got cases in the Safe Dams files that have been going on for decades, and nobody's ever done anything to touch the dams. For me, I want to fix the problem. I want to address those problems. What I don't want to also see is somebody just go out there and say, hey, let's just tear the dam out, and we'll go back to losing that water quality and the things that, that those reservoirs bring to all the citizens of Georgia. And it's something that, because some of it are privately owned dams, some of them are publicly owned dams. I tried to make all inclusive, and it's one thing that I think can save lives of people in Georgia, and that's why it's critical for us to pass this legislation.
Can I ask one more question?
Please do.
So I just need this in simple terms. Are you saying that it's unconstitutional for us to ban people from building houses in a flood zone?
No, said I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that if we took a breach analysis and we said, no, you can't build a house downstream from that, I believe the courts would rule that we don't have the power to do that without compensating those downstream property owners. What we're trying to do is to build a hardened structure, a higher level of construction.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
What your bill asked for?
Does
The full?
This?
Yes.
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 Does anybody else have any questions for Senator Ginn? I know we have a couple of people that want to speak. Senator Gooch.
I'm sorry I came in late. You may have already covered this, but Senator Ginn and I have talked about this in the past. My concern has always been, if I'm the property owner downstream, why should someone upstream cause me to have to spend extra money to build a home or a structure in that breach zone? If it's a creek or a river that's not impounded today, and I buy a 2-acre lot and I put a home on it, or I keep it to where one day I will build a home on it, meanwhile somebody upstream decides to impound the creek or the river, then I no longer have use of my property as the intent I had when I purchased it, unless I design it to those new standards. So it may not be a taking, but it sure feels like one if you have to spend more money to use that land that you've owned for years.
And if I could address that, said there's two things here, Mr. Chairman. Said one of them, a lot of these dams provide downstream protection from flooding. Said and so where you've got somebody that wants to build a house downstream, without that dam, they may be building in a flood zone. Said when you look at the benefit to all of Georgia for having better water quality, better fisheries, better recreation, said this is not a perfect bill. I'll tell you that Senator Gooch has a very good point that, you know, when you look, this is putting a requirement on somebody downstream. But it is something that I'm trying to do to protect their life. Right now, there's nothing out there that protects that person to even know that they're putting their life in danger by building in that flood breach zone.
Response to that would be, if the dam is permitted legally, then the EPD would know what structures are downstream or what property owners are downstream when they permit the reservoir, the impoundment. And let me just remind you, one size doesn't fit all in Georgia. A 150-foot stream buffer in North Georgia has a whole different impact to property than it does in Middle Georgia or South Georgia. We have 50-foot trout stream buffers in North Georgia today. If you're on a stream that's below or above, if it's above a water intake, water supply 7 miles upstream, you have to have a 150-foot buffer. So I don't know how much more we continue to take from the property owners before they do take us to court and challenge us on the constitutionality of it as a taking. We've been through these buffer arguments for many years. But if you have a piece of property and you have a creek running through it in North Georgia, there's only a little bit of land that's suitable to build on, and it's usually within 50 to 100 feet of the creek. Now, if you have a 50-foot trout stream buffer, then you have to put your structure and your septic tanks beyond that 50 foot. if the reservoir upstream is big enough, this may require you to go even farther up the hill, which could almost eliminate any use of the land. So that's, you and I have talked about this. I'm not telling you anything new. So I don't know what the answer is either. I'd love to figure out a way to help you.
I think Senator Gooch, actually, I think you do bring up a good point, because I think I know what Senator Ginn's attempt at this is. I think I know what it was last year. It's to try to find a way to help the dam owner, so to speak. But I think Senator Gooch brings up a good point, that maybe the unintended consequence is that it's a possibility that you could flip this around, and in an attempt to help the dam owner, we could actually have a negative impact on helping a property owner downstream of a possible dam in the future. And I think that is something that maybe we do need to look into a little bit deeper, to make sure that that is not an unintended consequence of what you're trying to do. And I think that was what Senator Gooch's question was, or your point. Is that accurate?
I've also been on the other end of this. In one of my previous jobs at a resort in North Georgia, we had a lake that was a Category 2 lake, and it's been reclassified as a Category 1 because of this very issue, simply because someone moved a mobile home in downstream about 2 miles below the dam. And so the resort that I worked at and managed, we ended up spending $750,000 to bring it up to Category 1 standards. We had to lower the elevation of the dam, and basically the size of the lake is almost half of what it originally was when it was built. So it's a bad situation for on both sides. So I don't know the answer. This may solve it for the landowner who has the lake, but it may not be ideal for the landowner downstream either.
Mr. Chairman, said I might note that today, for you to go out and build a dam that would be a Category 2 or Category 1, said it's not a simple matter. It's going to be a well-engineered dam. It's going to meet all kinds of requirements. Said we're not talking about dams that are built today, because they're going to be I can promise you they'll be a safe dam. What happens is that we have a lot of dams that are 100 and 150 years old. Said that have been out here. Nothing's changed. Said but somebody moved in a mobile home down below. And so for me, which is worse? Said you leave a person out there that's unsuspecting. Said they don't even know they're in a breach zone, or to have that breach analysis done. There's ways to mitigate it. And I'm telling you, this is not perfect legislation. There is no such thing as a perfect answer. But what this does is this notifies the public, hey, this is a breach zone. Said we want you to be safe. We don't want to lose the life of the Georgia citizen. And this is a way that for all Georgia citizens, having these reservoirs disappear would be tragic to what goes on in Georgia.
So, really quick, just out of curiosity, I don't know that I've asked you this question before. I think hearing your conversation there, I just thought about it. So how do I know when I'm supposed to get a breach analysis if I don't know what the inundation zone is, or if I don't know where the breach zone is, even if I am below a dam? How do I know when I'm supposed to do that, number one? And because it's going to be costly to me as the landowner below the dam to get that study done, and I go spend all this money and find out that I'm not in the breach zone, then I just wasted a lot of money on something that I didn't have to do from the get-go. So how do I know that I need to have a breach analysis, because there's no way to know where that is?
Let me clarify this for you. So and what this does is this incentivizes the dam owner. Very unlikely that any property owner downstream or whatever is going to go do a breach zone on a dam they don't know exists. But what happens here with this legislation is it incentivizes a dam owner to have a breach analysis done on their dam, because if they find out that, and they need to know, they really should know, do I have a Category 1 dam or a Category 2 dam? If they have a Category 2 dam, the incentive is that they can keep it always as a Category 2 dam by letting the world know, hey, here's the breach zone, and if you want to build in there, you build a hardened structure. If it's a Category 1 dam, Safe Dams will take enforcement action to make sure that that dam either gets hardened, they remove the structure out of the breach zone, or they harden the structure in the breach zone. And that's where, for me, none of that happens until the breach analysis is done. And 99.9% of the time, I'm sure that breach analysis is going to be done by the dam owner, because they're the ones that they have the incentive to know, hey, if it's a Category 2, I can keep it as a Category 2. So then that's the beauty of what we're trying to do here.
Senator Harrell. Number 11.
Senator Jackson had to leave because she's got a DOT election for District 2. But when she pointed out that she got some correspondence, I believe you asked if it was Mr. Ogden.
Mark Ogden is the gentleman's
Okay.
name.
That is not what she has. This is a letter from the Association of State Dam Safety Officials.
He's the executive director.
This is signed off by Lori Spraggins, who says she's the executive director.
Well, he was a dam official.
they work together.
It's the same group.
Okay. Well, these bills are tough when, we're not the experts on complicated subjects like
I will,
this.
to your point, Senator Harrell, I just so you know, I was planning on this being just a hearing on this issue, because it does get pretty complicated.
Okay, that's
There are a
good.
couple of people that want to speak.
Yeah, that's great. I know it's hard for
Actually,
people to speak.
Mr. Ogden reached out to our office after it posted on the web, and he wants to call in and converse. I think Ms. Peck wants to speak. I don't know if anybody else will. So there's
That's
some other
great, 'cause I
folks
need more help.
that are wanting to talk about it. So if that answers your question for now.
Yeah, I'd love to
Okay.
hear from more experts.
Senator Merritt.
Is that right?
Not quite.
Until we get more.
That's the purpose of a hearing, is to learn more information, right? And that's what we're trying to do. And I think that's the whole purpose of that's how you dig into legislation. That's how you understand it, and that's how you get the full aspects of it. I do have one more question, Senator, again, if I may. When it comes to the approval of the breach analyses, do we know if EPD has the resources or the staff or the appropriate engineers on staff that can do those approvals? Because I think that's important if we're going to ask them to do hold certain responsibilities, that they have those resources and those professionals on staff to do those things.
And that was one of the things that Director Dunn and I spoke with a good bit about, when I put a couple $1 million in the state budget to do breach analysis on the 186 dams, we wanted to make sure that those dam studies could be done accurately, they could be done timely, and the department could cipher those in. So for me, I don't expect a wave of 1,000 dam studies to come in.
Yeah.
But the kicker here is anybody that's doing a breach analysis for EPD has to be an engineer of record that's certified by EPD to do those breach analysis.
I understand, but my question but we're asking EPD though to approve those analyses that is done by engineering record that EPD also approves. Does EPD have the expertise to be able to sign off on or approve those breach
I'll
analysis?
let you ask them particularly that, but
Okay.
we've just done 186 of them in recent time. So I don't think you're going to see a horde of breach analysis come in, but this gets a start.
I got you.
Quick question before we get to the.
Yeah.
And maybe we've talked about this in the past, I can't remember. If the EPD did the breach analysis on the dams, which I think would be a good start, instead of putting these requirements on the property owners, why not start with the local GIS offices putting this on their websites, putting it on their land use maps, Even put it on some kind of a deed notification, record it in the courthouse in the clerk of court's office, to where someone that bought this land would know before they purchase the land that there could be a breach and there could be a hazard if those dams were to breach. And that way the public would be on notice and not require a landowner to upgrade their home or their property in the future.
That landowner would then
it'd
be
an option
liable.
for
It
them.
would be their choice.
And if the
to do
insurance
that.
company wants to insure it, then move on, instead of
I'm-
making it, is that an
I'm really
idea?
excited you read the bill. Said
Well, I
that,
haven't
'cause
read the bill.
it is in the bill
So
to
you're not
notify
gonna-
the downstream governments, to put it on the clerk's records,
Okay.
to notify the chief executive of every local government downstream in the breach zone, and for EPD to have a directory of these.
But can we stop right there and not do the requirement of the upgrade to the structures? Not mandate the structures be upgraded. That's the part. It feels like an undertaking to me.
Well, but here's the problem when you don't do that. Said you put it in there and nobody's going to say, hey, I want to go do a breach analysis on my dam because I've put this downstream and all it takes is one mobile home. There's nobody that's going to pay for a breach analysis knowing that 2 weeks later or 10 minutes later, somebody could park a motor home below it and said, I'm now in the breach zone, you're a category 1.
Then buy my land. Is what I would tell you. Buy me out. But I'm with you. But
Any other questions from the committee? Senator Tippins.
What's typical cost of a breach analysis?
Anywhere from, on those state ones we did, which are pretty good sized dams, the breach analysis was running about $8,000 to $15,000 on average, something in that ballpark. So there's a huge return to the taxpayers for and the landowners for doing a breach analysis. It's not one of those things you're just going to buy every day, but there's a benefit to it, and the main thing is public safety. And that's why we have a safe dams division of the Environmental Protection Department.
Any other questions? We'll go ahead and Miss Peck, if you want to come to the microphone,
All right.
and if you want to go ahead and get Mark on the phone, and that way he'll be.
Hey, y'all.
Ready to
I'm
go.
Rena Peck. I'm Executive Director of Georgia River Network. We work to connect people to rivers and waterways, so they want to clean them up and steward them and protect them. We, along with American Rivers and Chattahoochee Riverkeeper, have put together some comments to share with y'all. We do not support this bill. It's not really changed since last year, and this bill will not make dams more safe. This bill will not fix dams, but will allow people who live downstream of unsafe dams to harden their homes, and then the dam will never get repaired. The unsafe dam will still pose a hazard to people hosting a tailgate party in the backyard or riding around on a tractor below the dam. The unsafe dam will still pose a hazard to emergency and other first responders. Please remember, and the Senator noted this, the Safe Dams Act of 1978 was put in place after the disastrous failure of the privately owned Kelly Barnes Dam at Toccoa Falls in Toccoa, Georgia. And if you go there today, it's still an eerie place because of that that waterfall, but eerie. The disaster killed 39 people who were asleep in their beds. In reality, the Georgia EPD already has and acts on a policy to do what the bill calls for. Please let EPD do their job. Please allow EPD to exercise their own discretion. Otherwise, this committee could put more lives and property in danger. The legislature could instead appropriate more money to help complete a dam break analysis for all Category 2 dams across Georgia. That would go a long way to determining the real downstream impacts on property of a possible dam failure. Columbus, Athens, and other places in Georgia, community and property owners are taking out old and obsolete dams. They're taking them down. Georgia Power is preparing to take 3 dams on the Chattahoochee Dam. Unsafe and obsolete dams should be repaired or removed. Dam owners should take responsibility for their own property. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Ms. Peck. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Peck? Seeing none, I believe we got Mr. Ogden on the phone, and I'm gonna push my mic over to it, and we'll put it on speakerphone, and we'll let him give his testimony. Mr. Ogden, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good deal. Well, you are live, and you can go ahead and just please keep your comments brief, and you can go ahead with your comments on Senate Bill 84.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Harper, for the opportunity to address the committee today on Senate Bill 94. My name is Mark Ogden. I'm a registered professional engineer with over 35 years of experience in dam safety engineering, and I work for the Association of State Dam Safety Officials. ASDSO is a national nonprofit with a public safety mission to protect people and property from the failure of dams. ASDSO opposes Senate Bill 94. This bill presents an unacceptable public safety risk. It will allow innocent and unsuspecting people to live and work in areas downstream of poorly constructed, deficient dams. Dams that likely have never been inspected by an engineering expert and that do not have an emergency action plan. My comments today are brief, but as has been previously noted, ASDSO has emailed the committee members with more detailed explanation of the public safety issues with this bill. Senate Bill 94 attempts to address the problem of hazard creep downstream of Category 2 dams by allowing homes, businesses, schools, etc. in the failure inundation area if those buildings are hardened such that no loss of life is envisioned. In that situation, the dam will not be upgraded to Category 1 public safety standards. Unlike most states where significant and low hazard potential dams must be built and maintained to at least some minimum standard, Category 2 dams in Georgia likely were not, and their probability of failure can be high. The hardening of the home, business, or school may provide some protection for people who are inside at the time the failure flood hits. This will, however, provide zero protection for people around the property outside of a home or place of work, including first responders who may be trying to assist in an emergency situation. It will also provide zero protection for other personal property in the area, such as outbuildings, vehicles, animals, etc. Other states have addressed hazard creep with remedies that do not unnecessarily increase the risk to innocent people. ASDSO urges Georgia to explore other alternatives, and we welcome the opportunity to work with you to protect public safety. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Ogden. Appreciate your testimony. Anybody got any questions for Mr. Ogden?
I could go on for 3 years, but I won't.
Okay. Senator Gooch.
I'm not sure if I heard him correctly, but is he still on? Can he hear us?
Yeah, I don't know if he
It
can hear
doesn't
you,
matter, but
I'll
is he
repeat your
is he
question.
suggesting that the dams be upgraded to Class 1, or is he suggesting that we restrict people's use of the land downstream? I'm not
Mr.
sure.
Ogden, did you hear the question? If not, I can repeat it.
If you would repeat it, please. Yeah, I have difficulty.
Senator Gooch's question is, are you suggesting that we upgrade Category 2 dams to Category 1, or are you suggesting that people do not use the property below the dams if it's a Category 2? Is that accurate?
Most states remedy hazard creep issues by requiring the dam owner to upgrade the dam. There are also some instances in a few states where there have been attempts to restrict development downstream of dams. Virginia has done that recently with a bill that requires maybe the developer to share in the expense of the construction to upgrade the dam. That's one area. They've used that. They have not had a challenge to that as yet. So whether that's a takings of their property is maybe undetermined at this point. There are apparently there are localities in Georgia where zoning restrictions have been put in place to limit the development downstream of a dam in a failure inundation area. So that certainly is a possibility. But we think that those are better alternatives than allowing people to live downstream of these likely very deficient dams.
That you good?
Yep.
Say it again.
Mr. Chairman said one of the things that I go out here and I build my camp in the middle of the interstate. Said if the interstate's closed, said when the interstate opens and I get run over by a truck, said the problem is people are going in downstream right now of these dams and building a house, not knowing that they're in a breach zone. What I'm trying to do is encourage property owners to do a breach zone, because when we talk about an emergency action plan that Mr. Ogden mentions, you don't know there's a problem until you've identified the problem. And so for me, what I'm trying to do is to encourage dam owners and others that may have an ownership in a dam or affiliated to a dam or concern about a dam to do that breach analysis. One of the things that I want you to remember, this doesn't change any liability. When you do the breach analysis and you go out there and you say, okay, this is a category 1 or category 2 dam. The only difference is there's an inhabitable structure downstream or not. If you own a dam that's a category 2 and it were to fail, you're fully responsible for all of the cost of repairs and anything that happens when that dam fails. Said to me, this is what's important is you do an analysis on these and you're going to have an engineer of record to do that. That means they're going to have to do an inspection on the dam as well. One of the things that if you put yourself in that dam ownership spot and you own a category 2 dam, your insurance company is going to look at you a little closer and say, how do we know that dam is safe? Insurance will drive the correction on those dams. They will be the enforcement tool, so that if you have a dam that has irregularities or imperfections, they're the ones that are going to say, hey, we're going to charge you an extra premium. You're going to have to go out and do these other studies. For me, this is just the start of the process, and that's what Mr. Ogden doesn't understand. We don't go from where we are to where we want to be all in one step. I'm trying to inch the ball forward one little bit at a time. And the first thing is to identify that breach zone and have that analysis done. And that's what this is all about, is to try to encourage a dam owner to have the breach analysis done. And once they've done that, we know, okay, is it a category 1 or category 2? If it's a category 1, guess what? We're telling EPD, hey, my dam is a high hazard dam and there's a house that somebody could lose their life in. Get yourself in gear so you go out there and protect the public. And that's what this bill is all about, is protecting the public.
Mr. Ogden, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, hey, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for sharing your comments. Anybody else got anything for Mr. Ogden? Seeing none. Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. I'll let you hang it up. All right.
How much would it cost for the evaluation to find out if it was a 1 or 2?
Well,
What kind of money are we talking about?
that's where the breach analysis, and we're talking about $8,000 to $15,000 in that ballpark, depending on the dam and structure. But what we saw from what we bid out to on the state dams was that range was in that ballpark.
8 to 15,000.
That's right.
Say again, do you know how many dams there are in the state of Georgia?
I was talking to an engineer with Snobble earlier today, and his estimation was there's about 3,000 dams across the state right now that are privately held and publicly. There's the state owns 357 of them.
That's right.
That would be in that range. I don't know. I don't have that information.
I'm guessing EPD doesn't know.
And
right
for me,
off.
that's the problem is they don't know. And this is what I'm trying to do is identify that problem first.
All right. Anybody got anything else? Sir, again, thank you for your conversation and the lively conversation we've had. I think there's been some important points brought up to continue the conversation. I think some of the things that Senator Gooch brought up in conversation are some things we can work on. What we'll plan to do, Senator Gooch, if you're willing to be part of that conversation and working on something that we can work together and maybe perfect this a little bit more, and maybe it's something that we can all work together on and move forward on. We'll do that. And if any other member of the committee wants to be a part of that conversation, just let me know. We can make that happen. And that's what we'll do going forward. That'll be the plan. So we'll work together and try to find a way to do this. I know I got Senate Research doing some research on some things on this.
Mr. Chairman, I
already.
would ask that if there's any way possible, we have another committee meeting between now and before we go into session on Monday to get this bill moving. You know, we got a lot of time to work on it, said and that's where, for me, it passed overwhelmingly last year. It's something that protects the public, and the longer we wait, the more structures that get built unknowingly in a breach zone.
I understand, and I think we all, and I understand your passion. I just want to make sure that what we're doing and what we're moving forward is the best thing that we can put forward and the best possible solution to the problem that may be there. So we'll work on it, and we'll get to that point. Senator Gooch.
Real quick question.
Yes.
Was the Toccoa breach the last breach that you know of? Because I was a kid when that happened. I went up there. I remember that day.
We have several dam failures in Georgia, said since then. Said
With loss of life?
Not with loss of life along those lines, but we've had some other dam failures in that period of time.
Okay, thank you.
But none with loss of life since the Toccoa failure.
Not the tragedy that happened then.
I went up there that day. That was bad.
All right. Anything else from any of the members? Hear none, we are adjourned.